My name is Sloan Whitaker, and I'm 32 years old. 3 months ago, I thought I knew what my future sounded like. A string quartet warming up in a glass-roofed hall, our names calligraphed in cream-colored ink, my mother crying softly into a linen handkerchief she pretended not to own. I had stacked the boxes of invitations on the dining table like promises. I had let myself believe we were the kind of couple that made plans and kept them. Last night, Thursday at 11:17 p.m., my condo was quiet enough that I could hear the refrigerator hum. I was half asleep on the couch, a controller in my hand, when my phone flashed. Adrian. He was in another city for his bachelor party, 3 days away with his friends, one last hurrah, led by his best man, Beck. I'd told him to go, to have fun. I'd even smiled about it. Smiles are good camouflage. I thumbed the screen open and read, "Hey, so this is super awkward, LOL. I ran into Juliana. We ended up back at her hotel, and we accidentally slept together. It made me realize I'm not over her. We talked all night, and we're getting back together. Sorry this is so last minute. We're flying to the coast tomorrow, so I won't be back." I read it twice. Then a second message landed, as if to salt the wound. "BTW, I'm keeping the ring. It's a clean break gift, and I can use it for my future with Juliana. Don't try to contact me. It's better this way. Beck will swing by for my stuff next week." There is a moment when pain is so sharp it goes silent. No thud of a dropped stomach, no heat in my face, just the sense that someone opened a window in January and all the warmth left the room. I looked at the word accidentally. I looked at keeping the ring. The ring. $80,000 of status and conflict, a custom-designed 3.5-carat monument he insisted upon. The part that makes this story specific is the credit. Adrian is obsessed with optics, credit lines, portfolios, luxury. He has a decent job in brand consulting. His spending has never met a ceiling it didn't try to vault. At the jeweler, he'd turned to me with that hungry boyish grin. "It's my ring," he'd said. "I want it on my credit. It builds my profile. A high-limit line from a place like this looks incredible." He opened the store credit line in his name only. The $80,000 hit his account. Our arrangement was simple. It was his debt, his status trophy, and I, his fiancé, would gift the monthly payments. I set up a recurring $2,500 transfer from my bank to his jeweler line. We'd been paying it for 4 months. I stared at his text again. "I'm keeping the ring. For Juliana." I typed back a single word. "Thanks." I don't know if he understood it. I didn't care. I opened my banking app, scrolled to Adrian, ring, jeweler, tapped cancel recurring payment, and watched the toggle go gray, effective immediately. Then I opened my email. To Adrian Cole. Subject, our arrangement, body. Per your text. Our arrangement is over. This is all yours now. Thanks. I attached the most recent jeweler statement. Send. It was nearly midnight, but I felt alert in the way you feel when you smell smoke. I got up, set the controller down, and walked through my condo. My condo. I bought it 5 years before I met him. My name alone sits on the deed and the mortgage. He gave me half the utilities, at an undermarket split, and a list of reasons why he was contributing in other ways. I changed the smart lock code at the front door. New code. Save. Next tab. Wedding. Our spreadsheet was a map of a life that no longer existed. Venue $30,000. Caterer $20,000. Band $8,000. Non-refundable deposits already out. $15,000. All from my accounts. Money that evaporated when his thumb hesitated over his screen and chose someone else. I opened each vendor contract, copied the cancellation clause, and wrote the same note over and over. Per the dissolution of my engagement, I am canceling the event on date. I understand deposits are non-refundable. Please confirm cancellation. Send, send, send. Then Alex. My brother used him for a divorce that could have been a case study in stubbornness. I forwarded Adrian's texts and wrote, subject, urgent, broken engagement, cohabitation, and asset protection. He is not on the deed. He has left the state with his ex. Please call me at 9 a.m. Send. At 2:03 a.m., the condo sounded new. Air pushing through vents, the building settling. I picked up the $1,500 box of cream invitations from the dining table. They were heavier than they looked. In the hallway, the recycling chute swallowed them whole. I slept 3 hours and woke up feeling like I had borrowed my body from someone else. Coffee tasted like action. Alex had replied at 6:41 a.m. asking for a 9:00 a.m. call. The quiet felt clean. Then the math started stacking itself in my head. I was out $15,000 in deposits and $10,000 of gift payments to his jewelry account. $25,000 to learn who he is when no one's watching. That's a down payment on wisdom, I told myself. It still hurt. I showered, dressed, and watched the clock crawl toward 9. Somewhere above the hum of the city, a plane was probably lifting him and Juliana toward the coast. I pictured him admiring the ring, his ring, while a very polite, very firm payment reminder was on its way to his inbox. I pictured the moment he realized the $20,500 wasn't coming. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt inevitable. At 9:02 a.m., Alex's voice filled my phone, warm, efficient. "You did the right things," he said after I read him the text. "He's not on the deed. You can change the locks. We'll send a certified letter to your address and his parents' address, giving him 30 days to retrieve his personal effects by appointment, or they'll be deemed abandoned. Keep everything of his boxed and untouched. Document." "Do I need to worry about him claiming unlawful eviction?" I asked. "We'll put the text front and center," he said. "The phrases LOL, sorry this is so last minute, and I won't be back, are not the vocabulary of a person under duress. He abandoned tenancies by his own words. If he shows up, call me. If he calls the police, show deed, show texts, civil matter." "The ring?" I asked, even though I already knew. "It's his credit line," Alex said. "He kept the asset. He keeps the liability. Your payments were a conditional gift, condition marriage. He broke the condition. You're done paying." I exhaled. It sounded like surrender and survival at once. By noon, the pulse in my neck had quieted. I answered 2 emails, declined a pity lunch, and stood in the doorway of the closet where his suits hung like questions. I started a list for the boxes: clothes, shoes, gaming rig, beard trimmer, souvenir champagne saber he bought for Instagram and never used. 14 boxes, I guessed. Maybe 15. I wrote Cole, personal, at the top of a page, circled it, and underlined personal twice. At 4:12 p.m., my phone buzzed with a new email. Jeweler credit. Payment due in 5 days. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. The clock was moving on its own now, the way clocks do when gravity handles the story. People love to say time heals. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes time simply brings the bill to the table and waits, pen poised, while you remember who ordered what. That night, I set a clean set of sheets on the bed and turned off every light I didn't need. In the dark, the city's glow painted a thin line on the ceiling. I traced it with my eyes and felt the quiet come back like tide, the kind that doesn't comfort so much as clear. The next move would be his. The next word would belong to a lender with a penalty APR and no tolerance for accidents. The next knock, I suspected, would not be gentle. I was ready to answer it. Tuesday, the due date. Arrived like a drumbeat you try to ignore until it's the only sound left. I was at my desk, staring at a logistics spreadsheet that refused to add up to anything but distraction, when my phone began to vibrate across the wood. I let it go to voicemail. It vibrated again and again, like a trapped insect. Voicemail from Beck. "Sloan, hey, so, Adrian's having a weird situation. His jeweler card bounced at dinner last night. Misunderstanding, obviously. And he got some email about a late payment. You always handle that, right? I think maybe you forgot. He's embarrassed. Can you just take care of it? We'll swing by for his stuff this week. Thanks." Embarrassed. The word sat there like a smear. I deleted the message. An hour later, the phone lit up with Celeste, his mother, display name blooming across the screen in the kind of cursive only money and habit can manage. I considered letting it die like the others, then swiped to answer. Some fights shouldn't happen over voicemail. "Sloan, darling," she cooed, her tone lacquered in sugar. "I've been speaking with Adrian, and he tells me there's been some confusion. He's on a trip, unwinding before the big day. Meanwhile, he's receiving the most distressing notices. Credit, dear. You know how important maintaining a portfolio is at his level." "There's no big day," I said, keeping my voice even. "He ended the engagement by text on Thursday. He flew to the coast with Juliana." Silence. 10 seconds of pure static. Then her voice turned from sponge sugar to thin glass. That is not how we're framing it right now. The immediate issue is you neglecting a commitment. You agreed to make those payments as part of the engagement. You cannot simply withdraw a gift because you're, well, having a wobble. A wobble, I repeated. He slept with his ex and left. The ring is on his line of credit. He told me he's keeping it for his future with Juliana. My gift payments ended when the condition they were based on, our marriage, ended. There's nothing to fix, Celeste. You are being petty, she snapped, the mask slipping. He doesn't have $2,500 a month laying around. You know his budget. Julian, whatever his name is, certainly can't cover it. You have trapped him. I looked out the window at the river and felt an odd pity for her, for the architecture of denial she lived in, marble hallways and no doors that opened outward. He trapped himself when he turned a promise into leverage. If you'd like to discuss logistics, you can contact Alex, my attorney. From this point forward, please route communications through him. A lawyer? She laughed harshly. Over a ring? Over an abandoned tenancy and the retrieval of his belongings, I said, and ended the call before she could turn laughter into a threat. By evening, the light over the city thinned to the color of the inside of an oyster shell. I was pouring a glass of water when the intercom buzzed, sharp as a reprimand. Open the Kiatag door, a voice hissed when I picked up. Adrian, the code isn't working. All communication goes through my lawyer, I said. You're not on the lease. What the hell are you talking about? His voice climbed a rung. My clothes are in there. My laptop. You can't lock me out. Are you psycho? You abandoned tenancy, I said. Schedule a pickup time with Alex. He has availability tomorrow between 10 and 2 for a civil standby. A civil standby? He shouted, incredulous. I'm calling the police. You abusive... The line crackled into silence. 30 minutes later, a second buzz. Professional this time. Police. I met them in the hallway rather than invite them into the apartment. 2 officers stood there, one older, one with a notebook already in his hand. Adrian hovered behind them, jaw tight, eyes red. Juliana was beside him in a black hoodie, hair slicked into a severe bun, her hand wrapped around his forearm like a claim. Her gaze flicked over me, inventorying. Evening, the older officer said, tired but courteous. We got a call about an illegal eviction. This gentleman says you've changed the locks to a residence he shares. Good evening, I said, calm as a marble floor. This is my condo. I'm the sole owner. I handed him a folder I'd set by the door for exactly this tableau. Deed copy, mortgage statement. And this, I offered my phone, is the text message he sent on Thursday night, stating he won't be returning, that he's keeping the ring, and that I shouldn't contact him. The officer read the text, read it again. His eyebrow did a small, sympathetic thing. He turned to Adrian. Sir, this doesn't look like someone who was forced out. This says you're leaving. She's twisting it, Adrian said too quickly. I was emotional. I didn't mean... She locked me out and stole my property. Stole? I said lightly, as if we were discussing etiquette. No. His belongings are boxed and untouched by the door. He can retrieve them by appointment with my attorney present. Juliana stepped forward, chin lifted. She's holding his ring hostage. That's theft. Is she? The younger officer asked, eyes sliding to Adrian's hand. I didn't have to say anything. The ring sat on Juliana's finger, obscene and glittering under the fluorescent hall light. The stone looked like a tiny planet, and tonight, gravity was not on its side. She has the ring, I said anyway, for the record. The officers looked at each other. The older one sighed like a man who has seen this scene too many times to count. The choreography unchanged by names or zip codes. This is a civil matter, he said. We can't force her to let you in. You'll need to coordinate through counsel and schedule a time to pick up your things. We can be present if either party requests it. So I'm homeless? Adrian blurted. You're staying with me, Juliana murmured, but the certainty in it didn't reach her eyes. She was studying the ring the way you study a bill you weren't expecting. Once for the number, twice for how it got that high. You'll need to leave the property tonight, sir, the officer continued, gentle but immovable. This is not your residence. The hallway emptied one breath at a time. The elevators took the officers. Juliana tugged Adrian toward the doors, but he yanked his hand back and hissed at her, not quietly enough. The debt is in my name, he said, panic stripping his voice down to its bones. You told me it was paid for. She didn't answer. The elevator doors slid shut with the soft, expensive hush of good engineering. I stood in the sudden stillness and felt my pulse slow. Inside, I leaned against the door and let myself shake for exactly 5 seconds, counted, and then I put my palms flat and pressed. Sometimes you need the pressure to remind you there's a barrier between you and the ocean. The phone buzzed again, this time an email from Alex, as if he'd felt the scene through the walls. Subject: tonight. Good. You did everything right. I'll draft the certified letters first thing in the morning. 30 days to retrieve documented belongings, by appointment, with a civil standby. Keep the boxes where officers can see them. Do not engage further. I typed back received and put the phone down. After midnight, I walked the perimeter of my rooms like a watchman making rounds. Kitchen, living room, hallway, bedroom, the places that had learned our patterns and would now have to forget them. In the closet, his suit still hung by habit. I took a slow breath and closed the door. Tomorrow I would inventory. Tomorrow I would label. Coal. Personal. Tomorrow I would set them by the entryway like offerings to the god of clean exits. For now, I stood by the window and looked out at a city that couldn't care less about a woman whose almost husband chose someone old over something new. It looked beautiful like that, indifferent, alive. Somewhere in a hotel a few miles away, a man was reading the fine print on a luxury store credit agreement and discovering the word penalty APR. Somewhere, a mother was rehearsing sentences that would make a catastrophe sound like a misunderstanding. Somewhere, a best man was revising a speech into a story he could live with later. I pressed my forehead to the glass and let it cool me. The bill had arrived. The knock had not been gentle, but I had answered it. And in the answering, something inside me had clicked into place. A lock I hadn't realized was broken. In the morning, I made a list. Boxes. 1415. Clothes, shoes, toiletries, laptop, gaming rig, personal electronics, memorabilia. Photos of each itemized box time-stamped. Certified letters, to my address and his parents' address, 30-day retrieval notice, appointment required, civil standby window. Vendor confirmations, file all cancellation acknowledgments. Mail handling, return any forwarded mail unopened. Note senders. Harassment letter template ready. Self, eat something green, drink water, paint samples for the living room. At the bottom, in smaller letters, I added a 7th line that made me smile in spite of everything. Silence, protect it. The city shifted from oyster to pewter, then to pale gold. I brewed coffee and watched steam curl like a curtain rising. I had lost $25,000 and a future that was mostly props. I had gained a locked door, a plan, and the kind of quiet that hums the truth back to you when you finally stop talking. The next step wasn't dramatic. It was clerical. It was clean. It was mine. 5 days later, the quiet fractured. It began with envelopes. Glossy, perfumed, suspiciously addressed to Adrian Cole at my condo. Then came boxes. Subscription services, brand mailers, luxury catalogs. He was trying to reestablish residency on paper, to make it look like he still lived here. I texted Alex a photo of the growing stack by the door. Me. He's changed his address back to mine. Alex. Classic trick. Return to sender, unopened. Mark everything. Recipient does not reside at this address. Keep a record. I'll send a cease and desist letter to his and his parents' address tonight. So I spent that evening bundling mail that wasn't mine into a box the size of a betrayal, writing those same words again and again across glossy envelopes. Return to sender. Recipient does not reside here. It was tedious, deliberate, the opposite of anger, and it worked. After that, the mail stopped. But Adrian wasn't done. His attacks just shifted form. 3 days later, an email arrived from our wedding photographer, cheerful and oblivious. Subject, new beginnings, a creative idea. Dear Sloan, I'm so sorry to hear about the cancellation. I've spoken with Adrian, and he mentioned you've been struggling after the breakup. As I know the $2,000 deposit is non-refundable, I'd like to offer something kind. To credit that amount toward a new beginnings couple shoot for Adrian and Juliana. They seem so happy, and I'd love to support them during this transition. I read it 3 times, jaw tightening each time. He'd told the photographer I was struggling, that I was heartbroken, that he was moving on gracefully. I forwarded it to Alex. His reply came in 7 minutes. Subject, photographer issue. My client's deposit is not transferable to Mr. Cole or his new partner. Any attempt to repurpose her funds constitutes conversion. The cancellation stands as per the contract. The photographer replied instantly. Apologies, embarrassment, assurances it was an innocent misunderstanding. I didn't blame him. Manipulation was Adrian's native tongue. Then, a week later, came the big one, a formal demand letter from Adrian's new attorney. The language was all velvet and venom, unlawful eviction, claiming my changing the locks violated his tenancy, that his departure text was written under emotional distress. Property dispute, demanding half of my furniture, the sound system, and the framed art piece above the sofa, alleging they were gifts of love. The ring, admitting the credit line was in his name, but accusing me of fraudulently inducing him to open it based on a verbal contract that I'd pay all installments. He wanted me to either A, assume the full $80,000 debt immediately, or B, pay him a lump sum of $120,000, $80K principal plus $40K punitive damages and credit repair. In short, Adrian was suing me to pay for the ring he kept and was now wearing on Juliana's hand. I actually laughed, then forwarded everything to Alex. 2 hours later, he called, his voice practically humming with restrained amusement. Sloan, I'm about to write the cleanest ceasefire letter of my career. Want to hear the draft? Please. He read it aloud, line by line, a masterpiece of calm precision. On eviction. Attached text evidence clearly shows Mr. Cole's voluntary abandonment of tenancy. The phrases LOL, sorry this is so last minute, and I won't be back are not indicative of duress. Additionally, the responding officers deemed it a civil matter. On property, attached bank and credit records show that all disputed items, furniture, art, sound system, were purchased from Ms. Whitaker's accounts prior to Mr. Cole's cohabitation. Mr. Cole may retrieve his personal belongings only, clothing, toiletries, personal electronics. On the ring, Mr. Cole, a professional in luxury branding, willfully and eagerly opened a store credit line in his own name to build his financial portfolio. My client's payments were conditional gifts, contingent upon marriage. The condition was unilaterally broken by Mr. Cole per Exhibit A, his text message ending the engagement. By Exhibit B, my client's reply, thanks, constitutes formal acceptance of Mr. Cole's revised terms. He retains the ring and all related financial obligations. Any further claims will be met with a countersuit for harassment and legal fees. It was scalpel work, no drama, no emotion, just structure, logic, and evidence. I sat there listening as he read, feeling something like vindication, but quieter. Will it stop him? I asked when he finished. For a while, Alex said, until the jeweler calls. They'll call soon. He was right. 48 hours later, silence cracked open again, this time in the form of a desperate phone call from a blocked number. I almost didn't pick up, but something, maybe curiosity, maybe closure, made me press answer. Sloan? A man's voice. Not Adrian. Julian. He sounded nervous, breath uneven. You have to help me, he said, skipping the preamble entirely. She's losing it. The jeweler keeps calling. Collection agencies. It's been 2 weeks and they're already threatening legal action. Adrian said it was paid for. He told me it was a done deal. It's not, I said simply. She can't afford it, okay? She's freaking out. She tried to sell it, but the jeweler said a custom piece like that's worth maybe $30,000 tops on resale. She's 50 grand in the hole already, plus penalties. Please, you used to love him, right? You can't just watch him drown. I closed my eyes. Julian, the debt is in his name. He chose to keep the ring. He chose her. He gets both. You're ruining his life, Julian said, voice cracking. No, I said quietly. He did that when he texted me from her hotel room. Silence. Then a faint exhale, maybe a curse, before the line went dead. When I set the phone down, the apartment was utterly still. No hum, no echo, just air and consequence. Alex texted a minute later. Expect the civil standby notice soon, Friday morning, 10 a.m. I typed back. Understood. Everything will be ready. Then I looked at the 14 boxes lined up by the door, labeled, sealed, stacked like punctuation marks at the end of a very long sentence. I ran my fingers across the cardboard edges, thinking of all the little paper cuts that built up to this moment. None of them fatal, but together they told the story of how love bleeds out when pride takes over. Friday would be the last chapter, and I was ready to close the book. Friday morning arrived gray and clinical, like the world had decided to stay neutral. At 9:57 a.m., a knock sounded. When I opened the door, there they were, Officer Ramirez, the same tired man from before, and Alex, briefcase in hand. Behind them, the hallway filled with familiar ghosts. Adrian, pale and tight-jawed. Celeste, coiled like a spring. And Beck, the best man, holding his phone as if it might shield him from the awkwardness. Juliana wasn't there. "All right," Ramirez said, voice steady with routine. "Mr. Cole will remain in the hallway. Ms. Whitaker, you'll stay inside the apartment. Ms. Cole and her helpers can collect the boxes by the door only. No one steps further in. No yelling. No contact. Understood?" I nodded. Alex did too. The hallway smelled faintly of perfume and coffee, the scent of tension pretending to be polite. I opened the door wide enough for everyone to see the 14 boxes stacked neatly along the entryway, each labeled with black marker. Cole, personal. Adrian's eyes flicked over them, calculating what was missing. Celeste's lips pursed. "That's it?" she demanded. "She's keeping everything else?" "Everything on the list your son's lawyer provided is here," Alex said. "Clothing, shoes, laptop, toiletries, personal electronics, nothing else." "I just need to check the bathroom," Celeste tried, stepping forward. Alex blocked her without raising his voice. "Ma'am, you will remain in the entryway." "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "He's probably hidden the valuable items. The crystal, the serving platter from my mother." "It's in box 4, I said, calm and deliberate. Labeled kitchen." Adrian shifted, embarrassed, but Celeste wasn't done. "You should be ashamed of yourself, Sloane, after everything we did for you." "Mom," Adrian muttered, "just stop." For a moment, silence hung between us, heavy as wet wool. Then he crouched to lift the first box. His hands trembled. He looked thinner, the suit jacket a little looser around the shoulders, the confidence that once filled every room now just residue. Beck helped him carry out the first 2 boxes. Celeste stood fuming, arms crossed, muttering about ungrateful women. When they came back for the last ones, Adrian lingered, hand on the smallest box, the one labeled jewelry and misc. He opened it, eyes scanning the contents. His cufflinks, an old watch, a tie bar, the small personal things that had once been part of mornings we shared. He exhaled, almost gently. Then his gaze met mine. "You did this," he whispered, anger breaking through exhaustion. "You planned it. You knew this would ruin me." I blinked, stunned by the rewrite. "You're serious?" "You let me open that credit line," he said, voice shaking. "You told me it was fine. You wanted me to have it. You knew I couldn't afford it if you stopped paying." "I didn't let you," I said evenly. "You insisted. You wanted it on your credit, remember? You said it made you look successful. You called it an investment in image." He laughed once, sharp, cracked. "You should have stopped me." I stared at him, searching for the man I thought I'd loved. "You were 30, Adrian, not 15. You wanted applause, not partnership. You used me to finance a fantasy, and now you're angry I stopped clapping." His face flushed. "You were supposed to take care of me," he hissed, "even if I messed up." Celeste rushed in then, wrapping her arm around him. "It's okay, baby. We'll sue her for every penny. This is emotional abuse, what she's done." Alex stepped forward, composed as ever. "Celeste, that's enough. The time for threats is over. You have your belongings. If you don't leave now, Officer Ramirez will escort you out." The officer cleared his throat, expression weary but firm. "You've got your boxes, folks. Let's wrap it up." Adrian looked at me one last time. His voice was hoarse now, almost pleading. "I hope you're happy, Sloane. You won. You ruined my life. I have nothing." I glanced down at his hand. The ring, his ring, caught the hallway light, a flash of irony so bright it hurt. "You still have that," I said quietly. He looked at it like it was burning him. Then they left. Celeste whispering fury, Beck awkwardly carrying the final box, Adrian silent, staring at the floor. When the elevator doors closed, the hallway felt wider, like the air had finally exhaled. Officer Ramirez gave me a small nod. "Glad that's over," he said. "Some folks don't know when to quit." Alex gathered his papers, straightened his tie, and sighed. "She really believes it, doesn't she? That you're the villain." "Yeah," I said, "she does." He gave a small, sympathetic smile. "Don't worry about the threats. He's got no case, no money for a retainer. But the jeweler, they'll come for him, probably already are." He snapped his briefcase shut. "He'll end up declaring bankruptcy. The ring will get repossessed. auctioned for half its value. But his credit score will take the real hit. When they were gone, I locked the door and leaned against it. The silence pressed in, heavy, familiar, merciful. The condo was emptier now, 14 boxes lighter, one illusion poorer. In the corner, where the stack had been, a faint square of dust marked the floor. I didn't sweep it away. Not yet. Because sometimes you need to see the outline of what was lost to understand the weight of what's left. I made tea, I sat on the couch, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't check my phone. The quiet had changed. It wasn't hollow anymore. It was earned. The world didn't end after the boxes left. It just became slower, smaller, like the air had finally learned how to breathe again. By Monday, the threats had stopped, the calls too. Even Celeste's number went silent. For a moment, I thought maybe it was over. Then Alex called. "Brace yourself," he said, half a smile in his voice. The jeweler's collection department reached out, not to you, thankfully, but to him. He's officially in default. "How bad?" I asked. "Bad enough that he's probably learning what penalty APR really means. The interest has jumped to 29.99%, and the ring's resale value doesn't even scratch the principal. He's 50,000 in the hole and dropping fast." I tried not to feel anything. Not satisfaction, not pity, but something heavy still stirred in my chest. "He'll have to sell it." "He already tried," Alex said. "I got word from their lawyer. He took it to a jeweler in the city. They offered him 30 grand tops. When he realized that wouldn't even clear the debt, he stormed out." I could picture it too easily. Adrian, jaw tight, charm failing him for once. The salesman explaining numbers that didn't bend to charisma, the realization that image and reality had finally parted ways. Alex continued, quieter now. "Sloan, his lawyer dropped him. No funds for a retainer. He's going to have to file bankruptcy. When he does, the ring will be surrendered and auctioned for pennies on the dollar. It'll be gone, but so will the debt." I closed my eyes. "Then maybe that's fair." He exhaled. "Maybe." Before hanging up, he added, "Take a week off, okay? You've earned some quiet." I did. For the first time in months, I had no agenda but silence. I stopped checking email every hour, stopped rehearsing conversations that would never happen. I turned my phone to Do Not Disturb and left it there. Then I went to the hardware store, bought paint, a shade called Dove Mist, which looked like the sky just before it forgives the storm. On Wednesday, I spread an old sheet across the living room floor and started painting. Each stroke covered something invisible, a fingerprint, a memory, a ghost of a promise I'd stopped believing in. By the time I finished, the walls looked brighter, as if the light had been waiting for permission to come back. That night, my brother called. "You doing okay?" "I think so," I said. "Mostly just done." He laughed softly. "Mom says that means healing." Maybe. But healing, I learned, doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like stillness, the kind that follows the moment when everything collapses, and somehow you're still standing. A few days later, a mutual friend sent a message I didn't ask for. "Juliana's gone. She moved out of his place, blocked him on everything." Another rumor followed, that Celeste was trying to take out a second mortgage to pay the jeweler's demand, but the company wouldn't settle. They wanted the full amount, plus $6,000 in penalties and fees. The story kept spreading, like gossip always does. Some versions made me the villain. Others painted me as clever. I didn't care. For once, I didn't need to correct the narrative. Because the truth was simple. I'd stopped being part of it. I'd already paid my tuition in Heartbreak, $25,000 worth, and what I got in return was clarity. On Saturday morning, I opened every window in the condo. The air was cool, carrying the sound of the city waking up. Car horns, birds, the steady hum of life that doesn't pause for anyone's drama. I made coffee, set it by the window, and watched sunlight move across the floor I'd just painted. For the first time, it didn't feel like an empty space. It felt like mine. I picked up my journal, a habit I'd abandoned during the engagement, and wrote one sentence. "Freedom isn't loud. It's the sound of a door that only opens from the inside." I underlined it twice. Somewhere across town, a jeweler was drafting a final notice. Somewhere else, a man was realizing that credit, like love, only lasts as long as the payments do. But here, in my quiet apartment, the air felt clean. I wasn't happy, not yet, but I was free. And that I decided was enough.